And let's run you through all the developments, all the updates coming in on day 14 of the war on Ukraine. Now, this particular conflict has left the country bruised and battered after relentless Russian attacks as they're looking to gain control of the cities. Its capital, Kyiv, now that could be under siege next as Russian soldiers are inching closer and closer to their top target. Efforts are being made to evacuate suburban areas of Kyiv as heavy shelling continues to rock Ukrainian skies. Women, children, elderly, they're being rushed to safe spots. You've got many men staying back to stall the Russian advances, join side by side with the army. What we're also seeing is several other cities which are in complete shambles. The northeast city of Sumy, for example, has been targeted time and again by the Russians. Ukraine claims that the Russian bombardment has claimed 21 lives, including that of 2 children in Sumy. Meanwhile, people in Kherson gathered to protest against the Russian invasion as hundreds of citizens hit the streets against Russia. Remember, Kherson is one of the cities that's been captured by Kremlin. Ukrainian minister has claimed that the personnel of the Zaporizhzhia power plant have been held hostage and are being tortured. A similar claim had also been made about the defunct Chernobyl power plant after Russia had taken over. So on day 14 of the war, as we get you all the updates of what's really happening, remember that at this point, the cities close to the capital are the ones that are struggling because Russia is trying to get to Kyiv. The Ukrainian military is evacuating citizens from Bucha city. And there's been very heavy shelling that's been reported in the last few days in this city. Strategic plans are also being laid out to stall Russian advances towards Kyiv. You're seeing bridges being destroyed so troops can't make their way in. Hedgehogs being placed on the roads, civilians coming together, putting sandbags, all to ensure that Russia doesn't step foot in the capital of Ukraine.
Місто Буча, 3 березня 22 року.
Bucha on Kyiv's outskirts is facing the brunt of attacks.
You can hear shelling in the backdrop and hundreds of people are fleeing this battleground. They're fleeing the war zone.
As Russia advances towards Kyiv, the capital suburbs are feeling the heat of missiles.
You can hear all the Russian action. It continues, maybe at a distance, but it is quite a scare. We have residents from Bucha.
Bucha was left bruised and battered after a severe pounding by the Russian artillery.
The broken bridge and broken lives. Now a desperate attempt being made to rescue senior citizens. Easier said than done. An effort is being made to rescue these people from this broken bridge. Now this place in the Bucha district in Irpin is directly in the line of Russian fire and people are desperately trying to come out.
The town began emptying as citizens fled to safer places.
This is a very crucial bridge to enter Kyiv, and this bridge has been blown up so that the Russian forces are stalled. While the Russians may have their bridge-laying tanks, but getting those tanks in position here or finding another easier access to Kyiv will stall their advance, and this has given time to the Ukrainian forces.
We have residents from Bucha leaving their homes either on foot or being taken in ambulances and emergency services that have been pressed into action only for evacuation right now in Bucha district. The whole night, people over here really had to go through a lot of Russian action. So it is continuing. There are many areas that are absolutely unsafe.
We see a lot of war techniques, a lot of tanks, a lot of army, and a lot of foreign.
Are they Ukrainian or Russian?
No, it's not Ukrainian people. It's not Ukrainian. It's Russian people.
Ukrainian defense forces are doing their utmost to stall the Russian advance.
The situation is extremely grim. The Russians seem to be advancing, and that is why this area is being evacuated. If you notice, only military personnel here in this Irpin-Bucha belt here in Ukraine. But hold on. Be very, very careful, Pawan, very careful. These are anti-tank mines that are laid on the road here. So now you can make out how dangerous the situation is. My camera person Pawan was very close to these anti-tank mines that have been placed here. In some areas, you also have anti-personnel mines that have been deployed. Now, we have been told that there are anti-personnel mines and anti-tank mines in this area.
Even trains are being put to use to block the Russians from moving towards Kyiv.
Look at the desperate measures. There is a train track. Goods trains have been parked in the middle of the road. This is a track that crosses this. Now, right now, vehicles can pass through this, but should the Russian advance be close? And there are red lines at every flag and red flags being put. The moment those red lines are breached, this track will be closed. And this track, incidentally, is also manned, which means where we are right now, these trains will be in the middle of the track. Attempt is to stall the advance of the Russian army towards Kyiv.
Fighting with their backs to the wall, Ukraine is appealing for help.
People are really
Please
sad.
close the sky.
Close the sky. That's the message. That is exactly the message that Ukrainians, this young lad over here says, close the skies. We've heard this time and again that NATO and the West are not announcing closing of the skies. And unless and until that happens,
Putin хуйло говорит.
an angry soldier there, this Russian action will continue. So the demand of Ukrainians over here is to close the skies. A no-fly zone over Ukraine is just a must.
But the Russian war machine outside Kyiv is huge. For how long can the Ukrainians resist them is anybody's guess. With Gaurav Sawant and Geeta Mohan in Bucha district, Bureau Report, India Today.
What the world is talking about right now is the kind of resistance that Ukraine has put up. It was largely unexpected that 14 days now, Russia hasn't managed to capture any of the big cities because of Ukraine fighting back with all they've got. Russia from the very first day had impressed upon the Ukrainian troops to lay down their arms. A few days ago, Putin had sent out a message saying surrender right now to all Ukrainians. But that clearly hasn't happened. The home ground advantage has worked. Information warfare has also worked. And in our next report, we're going to be decoding 5 reasons as to how Ukraine has slowed Russia's advance.
When Russia invaded Ukraine on 22nd February, many felt it would be only a matter of days before the mighty Russian military got the better of the Ukrainian forces. A fortnight later, the end game remains unclear. Ukraine has put up a resistance that was least expected by Russia, especially with civilians voluntarily joining the war to resist the Russian might. With the fall of Kherson, Russian forces were expected to take control of other key cities like Kyiv and Kharkiv. The nature of fight back indicates a detailed battle plan at play. Ukrainian forces have been preparing and readying for a Russian invasion since 2014, when Crimea was annexed. The country's entire military is in tune to fight Russia, as they don't have any threats from its other neighbors like Poland, Hungary, Slovakia or Romania. Putin's soldiers have been surprised by ground tactics of Ukraine troops, including anti-tank weaponry and sniper fire. Russia is also on the back foot in urban warfare because its air force was pressed into action late after the initial bombardment by cruise missiles on February 24th. Lastly, Ukraine might have an inferior military, but it is winning the information battle. They have successfully convinced the world that Russia is the only aggressor and villain in this war. Ukraine claims it has so far killed 11,000 Russian troops and shot down 46 aircraft, 68 helicopters. While these claims might not be accurate, images of damage suffered by Russian forces that have emerged point to a fierce fight in the place of what was expected to be a lopsided war. With Rajesh Pawar in Kyiv, Ukraine, and Abhishek Bhalla, Bureau Report, India Today.
Russia is clearly upping its offensive, and Ukraine President Zelensky, who's been hailed by the world for the kind of fight he's put up, is defiant and is currently in Kyiv. But what lies at the heart of the Russia-Ukraine conflict is Ukraine's bid to get NATO membership. And NATO's silence on the war right now speaks volumes. Ukraine President Zelensky has exposed exactly that, blaming Western allies, saying that they've done nothing whatsoever to help Ukraine fight against Russia.
Я запитав сьогодні у 27 лідерів Європи, чи буде Україна в НАТО. Запитав.
Today I've asked 27 European leaders whether Ukraine will be in NATO. I've asked directly, everyone is afraid. No one answers. But we are not afraid. We are not afraid of anything. We are not afraid to defend our country. We are not afraid of Russia. We are not afraid of talking about neutrality. We are not NATO members at the moment. But what guarantees will we get?
Ukraine's bid to get membership of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization is at the heart of the Russia-Ukraine conflict that has now triggered a full-blown war. The two countries are at each other's throats. The third player, NATO, is silent over the key issues. While thousands are displaced and hundreds dead, NATO is not committing to a membership for Ukraine so far. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has also urged NATO to enforce a no-fly zone over his country's skies and protect them from Russian missiles and warplanes. NATO has not agreed to either of his demands.
NATO is a defensive alliance. Our core task is to keep our 30 nations safe. We are not part of this conflict, and we have a responsibility to ensure it does not escalate and spread beyond Ukraine, because that would be even more devastating and more dangerous.
Zelensky feels let down by his Western allies. He said the West could have helped Ukraine, but they witnessed our city get bombed. With Russian forces inching towards capital Kyiv and an all-out assault imminent, the US has given green light to Poland and other East European nations to give fighter jets to Ukraine.
We are we're looking actively now at the question of airplanes that Poland may provide to Ukraine, and looking at how we might be able to backfill should Poland decide to produce those, supply those planes. Can't speak to a timeline, but I can just tell you we're looking at it very, very actively.
As the war rages in Ukraine, NATO allies seem to have made distinctions in the help they offer. While they may supply weapons to Ukraine, they will not enter the war in any active role. Ukrainians will have to defend their land themselves. Bureau Report, India Today.
The United States has retaliated to Russia by waging an economic war against them. You've seen several sanctions being imposed, but now the biggest step perhaps is that US President Joe Biden has banned all import of oil and gas from Russia. The decision aims to pressurize Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, to end the invasion on Ukraine. Speaking at the White House, Biden said that Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at US ports. Remember, Russian invasion of Ukraine has triggered a meltdown in the global economy. Oil prices have skyrocketed since the invasion. On Monday, it soared to more than 9%, hitting their highest level since 2008. Earlier, Russia had warned of oil prices hitting the record high of $300 per barrel. The Putin administration also threatened to cut off gas supply to Europe. All eyes now are on Russia's comeback to US's economic war. What are the steps that Russia will take next?
All imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine. This is a move that has strong bipartisan support in Congress and, I believe, in the country. Americans have rallied to support their Ukrainian people and made it clear we will not be part of subsidizing Putin's war. We made this decision in close consultation with our allies and our partners around the world, particularly in Europe, because a united response to Putin's aggression has been my overriding focus, to keep all NATO and all of the EU and our allies totally united. The decision today is not without cost here at home. Putin's war is already hurting American families at the gas pump. Since Putin began his military buildup on Ukrainian borders, just since then, the price of the gas at the pump in America went up 75 cents. And with this action, it's going to go up further. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home. In coordination with our partners, we've already announced that we're releasing 60 million barrels of oil from our joint oil reserves. Half of that, 30 million, is coming from the United States. And we're taking steps to ensure the reliable supply of global energy. We're also going to keep working with every tool at our disposal to protect American families and business.
And with that, it's time for us to slip into a short break here on India Today. Stay with us. We're going to continue getting you all the latest updates coming in from Ukraine on day 14 of the war.